Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm ready to give you my full review on the Danger Pickle. This knife is just so much fun for me. First of all, I'm so glad that from what I can see, Danger Pickle as a name is actually catching on. Most of the posts that I see on Instagram, Facebook, or otherwise about this knife make some kind of reference to the name Danger Pickle. So, not to be that guy and be like, hey, that was all me, but I'm the one who came up with Danger Pickle, so that feels good. That's fun to me, that this community has a sense of humor about this. Even Birch Tree Blades has posted, I think twice now, referring to it as the Danger Pickle, which just, it tickles my pickle. Anyway, I've spent a little over a week with this knife now. I've carried it almost every day that I've had it, partially because I've been wanting to feel it out, but also because I actually really enjoy carrying this knife, which surprised me a little bit. A, knowing the dimensions and the thickness of it and all that before I ever even got it. And then B, once I did get it, seeing how the pocket clip worked and the nature of how it actually came together, I didn't think I was going to love having this knife in pocket. I knew it was pocketable, and I obviously it's capable of being carried, but I didn't think it was going to be such a joy to carry and use. And to some people, this is going to be very my opinion, some people might find that they don't love carrying and using this knife, but I just get this, there's this inherent fun factor to me carrying and using this knife. I love when this is the knife that's in my pocket and I have something to cut, so I pull it out and I flick this knife open and it comes out of pocket well. It feels really good in hand. Like, the ergos of this knife for me are so good, so much better than I was expecting them to be. And then the way that the blade orients with this nice flat spot to put my thumb or this great spot to choke up. Every time I've pulled this knife out and actually had to cut something with it, opening a box or processing some cardboard, or the few times I've tested it a little bit, cutting some rope and stuff, just to feel it out and be able to say to you guys with confidence how it works, it's a really good cutter. It's a stupid thick blade stock. Like, that blade stock is really, really thick. One of the thicker folding knives that I have in terms of blade stock and just thickness in general. But the way that they did this hollow grind, they actually got it respectably thin behind the edge. Is this a slicing machine with that hollow saber grind? No. But for the everyday task of just like cutting random stuff, it's excellent. Am I going to go slice apples with this? Again, no. Like, it wouldn't be my choice for that. But it's rare for me to pull out my folding knife and cut an apple. I'm usually in the kitchen if I'm doing that. Or if I'm out on a hike and I have an apple, I just eat a whole apple. I'm not like cutting apple slices for myself. I do that for my kid. Anyways, the way that this knife cuts, it's actually really, really good. In my opinion and experience and the things that I've done with it. Is it my best cutter? Again, I'm going to reiterate. No. I think some people are going to watch this video and be like, oh, he's saying that it's one of his top EDC knives. Like, no. This knife I don't even want to say so impractical, but it's impractical. It's a chubby, thick, small, kind of heavy, quirky little knife. If you look at this and you don't think it's quirky at all, then we have different eyes. It's different. But it also, what surprised me the most about it is how functional it really is. I didn't expect this knife to not cut or to like be bad at being a knife per se, but I didn't expect it to be this good or this pleasant to use for everything. I think a lot of it really does stem from the ergos for me. The ergos of this knife are one of my favorites in my collection right now. It feels really good in hand. Everything is nice and round and smooth, and I made a joke in my first impressions that it kind of feels like you're holding a pickle, which is hilarious, but it really kind of does. Everything is nice and round. It's like if you took a pickle and you cut like some thin slices off of the like opposing ends of it long ways so that it's still kind of indexed, but the overall like roundness and just smoothness of it still feels, I don't know, it's great. And the size of it too, I've said plenty of times, but if you're new to my channel, I wear medium gloves, but I fill them out real well. And for me, the amount of real estate that my hand can land on, it's like perfect. I don't have anything extra sticking out, but I've got all 4 fingers on this knife and it feels secure and solid. And it's great. Also, because it's got this flat here, I can choke up, and I find that even like just for finite stuff, the other day I was cutting like something out of paper for my daughter. It was really good at it. It gives me a great controlled, really nice indexed grip on the knife to do detail work. It's just tickling my leg and I thought that it was a bug. Danger Pickle to the rescue. I'll just cut it out. Anyway, it's ergonomically and like the functional like grip space and grip area, even in reverse grip, it's really comfortable. In a draw cut, still really comfortable. Reverse draw cut, not so comfortable, but I don't really do that with knives so much. I don't know, I just find this knife has been so exciting for me to put into my pocket, for me to actually use, for me to carry, for me to fidget with. It's not like super drop shutty, but it's got a really satisfying action to play with. I love Spidey flicking it. It's great for thumb flicking as well. Like as Spydercos with holes, which is all of them, go for deployment, this one's excellent. And it's just got this like inherent character about it. It feels like a special knife, and not even just because it's limited to 1,250 pieces does it feel special, but the design of this knife is exciting to me. If this knife was an unlimited number of pieces and you could just buy them anywhere at any time, I would still really, really like this knife. Does it add to it that it's limited and exclusive and there's only a certain number of them, and mine says inside that it's number 46 of 1,250? Yeah, that's all cool. I'd be an absolute liar if I didn't say I appreciate and enjoy that aspect of this knife as well. But this knife could stand on its own 2 feet as being a fun knife that I would want to own even if it wasn't limited. And it's just, that's great to me, like that you can have both of those things at the same time. So yeah, let's walk through it anatomically real quick before I just keep rambling about it and break it down a little bit. So we've got 20 CV blade steel, which is the high-end standard at this point. In my opinion, if you're looking at a high-end knife, or even like middle high-end, 20 CV, M390, 204P are what's considered to be kind of the high-end standard at this point. It used to be S30V some years ago, and then it was S35VN. Before all those, it was even like D2. But 20CV dumps on all those other steels I just talked about. So does M390 and 204P. If you disagree, go for it. That's the way I read the charts and the data. So sorry, but 20 CV is an awesome blade steel with incredible edge retention, good amounts of toughness, fair amounts of corrosion resistance, and it's not that hard to resharpen and to get very, very sharp. So great blade steel, and you're getting a thick slab of it on this knife, like really thick. And the hollow grind, like I mentioned, is done. I was not expecting this knife to be this thin behind the edge. This is so much thinner behind the edge than my Paysan was, or my Subvert was, or what are some other Taichung knives that I've had recently? I don't know. It's thinner behind the edge than my Drunken was, I think. It's a really nice thin profile right behind the edge, and it gets pretty steep pretty quick where it gets up to that thickness that you can see at the spine. But for cutting through the bulk of materials, it works really, really well. It's a very functional grind for how quirky this blade shape is. Speaking of the blade shape, I've heard other people refer to this as a dodo bird, and I totally see that as well. But you've got this really cool sheep's foot, which is almost like a sheep's foot spear point, if that makes sense, because we've got this belly that ticks up to meet the sheep's foot. Most sheep's foot that I've seen or owned, the blade lays pretty flat in terms of the edge, and the sheep's foot comes all the way down to it. So this is a pretty cool, you still get a reasonable point to puncture through material while still having a sheep's foot where the point isn't like super dangerous. Not that I'm worried about dangerous points, but in some applications it's nice to not have a super stabby tip on everything. So Gosh, these flies are gonna drive me insane. So, blade shape looks cool and actually functions a lot better than I even assumed it would before I had one. It's really a pleasure to cut things with this knife. And you get that nice flat spot here. You've got a great thumb spot right here, like I said, another spot to choke up that's very intuitive, and it works really well. This knife, I feel like it just kind of looks like Birch Tree Blades designed it to be a little funky. Like for me, who's never even held one of his other knives that I can recollect, it just looked different and fun, and that's kind of what drew me to it. But now I get why it looks different and fun, because in hand, it's actually phenomenal. Like ergonomically, this knife is a total win for me. Not only just the way the handle feels in my hand, but the way that the rest of my hand relates to it. Putting my thumb places for different types of cuts, moving the orientation of the knife around. Like, it's really, really good. And hammer grip, saber grip, reverse grip, draw cut, like you name it, it's good, except for reverse draw cut. That's uncomfortable, I'll say. The pocket clip, let's talk about that. The pocket clip is a little shallow, admittedly. There's not a ton of space right here for thick pants, and it's not a super steep ramp, but I've put this knife in a lot of different pockets at this point, and it goes in and out of any pair of pants that I own and have tried putting it in. I think part of what helps that is that this is smooth G10, so there's not a lot of friction or resistance, and you can just kind of slide it right through. Could it be a better pocket clip? Sure, but I've carried this so much with this pocket clip, and I just haven't minded it. I really haven't. Like, I don't know if there was a deep carry clip that I could throw on this right now that I would really feel the need to do so. I probably would, knowing me. I do prefer deep carry, but the flatness of this clip and the profile of it also simultaneously makes it so much more comfortable in hand. Like, as pocket clips go, this one just kind of disappears into my palm. The way it sits, it nests like right there in my palm, and it just, the way my hand wraps around the knife, the clip it's as if it's not wearing a pocket clip. It feels so good. And a deep carry, like loop over pocket clip that bulged right here, I can tell you right now, with where that spot sits in my hand, I'd feel it more. So I'm kind of behind this pocket clip. I'm kind of with it. I would try a deep carry pocket clip. Let's be totally honest, because I do prefer deep carry clips to actually carry knives. But if it ruined the ergos, I'd have no problem throwing this one back on and carrying it like this, because I have been, and it's been awesome for it. And also, there is an argument, and some people make it often, that with non-deep carry clips, you have a spot to grab the knife. Without pressing on the pocket clip and adding more tension, you grab by the screws, and then on the opposing side of the knife. And the way that these button screws stick up here, it does give you a lot of grip to go ahead and pull this out of pocket, and it's a pleasure to put in and take out of pocket. It feels great for it. So just a win there again. What else do I need to talk about? I talked about action a little bit. Let's revisit that super quick, but it's got all of the regular Spidey hole deployment methods. Typically thumb or middle finger. I guess you could probably front or like pointer finger flick it. That's not working super well on camera, is it? There we go. The little wrist. Maybe with my ring finger. Let's give that a shot. Oh, yep, that works great. Can I do the pinky though? Oh, he did it. Yeah, pinky works. Can I reach over the top and do the, yep, that works. Like, it's fun to fidget with. I enjoy playing with knives that have holes. There you go. One thing to mention as well, I've seen it complained about pretty frequently on Taichung Spydercos, that the chamfering around the hole, like there is none, that it's very sharp corners, and on the spine of the blade. On this one, it's a smoother hole and a smoother spine than any other Spyderco that I own. It's really knocked down well and smoothed out, and it's great. It's not gonna mess with your dainty fingernails when you're flicking it out. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. I love the Danger Pickle. I genuinely do. It was one of those knives that before I got it, I knew if I was able to get one, there was virtually no risk involved because it was a super limited one. So worst case, I could get all my money back out of it if I decided to sell or trade it. And I like no risk knives like that. that's part of my buying style, if you haven't caught on. And for me, that method works. But I kind of just want to keep this knife forever. It's fun to me, and I gave it a nickname that people also think is fun, and it looks great in photos, and it's a pleasure to use and to carry, and I don't know, it's just different. Plus it's fun too. Like, my wife is so not into knives. She's very supportive of me, but she couldn't, at the end of the day, really care less about knives. But this is her favorite knife that I own. Like, she gets a kick out of it when I carry the Danger Pickle, and when the knife that I pull out to use is the Danger Pickle. Like, she thinks it's fun and funny, and she thinks this knife is cool when she holds it in hand. And I like knives that get that out of people who aren't knife people. Like, she finds some enjoyment out of this in some way. And my daughter, when she calls it the Danger Pickle, it makes me laugh every time. Like, there's just an inherent level of enjoyment behind this knife for me, and that's a great thing. It really is. This is one of my favorite knives that I've bought in a long time. Not because it's the most practical, although it's very practical. Not because it's not because it's the most fun to play with, even. Like, it doesn't have the most addicting action. It's not the most of any one thing, other than it's the most pickle. It's the most just like unique and kind of funky without being so funky that it's hideous to me. I know some people think this knife is hideous, and I see their comments too, but I see way more people who think this knife is cool and exciting, and it's just, it's fun to have something different, and that still works so well. Because if this knife was this different and this kind of cool looking and had a fun nickname, but it didn't cut well and it didn't carry well for me, then I wouldn't keep it. Like, it has to still perform at the end of the day for me to carry and use it, and for it to be so nice to pull out and use really just seals the deal for me. I know a lot of people will get these and never carry them, and it's a collection piece to some. I know, yeah, there's going to be a whole spectrum of people, but I'm going to use this knife. Absolutely. I already have been. I have no reservations about using this for any EDC task. This is my knife. I don't need to try to keep the value high on this because it's limited. This is going to be an absolute just user EDC, part of my rotation, fun knife for me to own. And to me, paying $280 for a knife that's this fun and this enjoyable, made of these materials, I got no problems about that. I've paid more for less, for sure. And so I just dig it. The Danger Pickle is a home run in my book, and that's probably very clear to you at this point. Can I be a Spyderco fanboy? Yeah. Does some of that come through in this? Sure. Am I a little bit biased about liking this so much because I like the brand and it's exclusive and fun? Yeah, all of that plays a factor. I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't, but it's also just it's a great knife on its own, objectively speaking. The way it cuts, the way it feels in hand, the way it carries, all of these things are positives. I'm not overlooking a glaring negative about this knife. I would say the most negative thing about this knife that I could perceive people saying is maybe how heavy it is. It's pretty heavy for its size, and maybe that it's a little thick. Those things don't bother me though about it. I feel like it adds to the character of the knife. Even on Father's Day, Sunday, I was in a local knife shop here, and the owner of the knife shop, I was meeting up with a buddy, and he's actually loaned me some knives that you guys will see soon, but the owner of the knife shop was in there, and I had this, and it was sitting on the table because my buddy was checking it out, and I asked him if he had seen the new Spyderco Bombshell, the owner that is. He said no. I said, check it out. And he picked it up, and he was like, oh wow, I really like the weight of this and the thickness of it. And he owns a knife shop here locally. I assume he's into knives like all of his employees who work there. And it's just cool that not only does someone like my wife, who again couldn't care less about knives generally other than being supportive of her husband, that she likes it and appreciates it, and then to hand it to knife guys and see their reactions be usually very positive about it. It just, I don't know, I feel like it's a pickle for the people. Maybe that's what this all boils down to. It's the people's pickle. Anyway, I've said pickle too many times today, or not enough, I don't know, but this has been fun. This is the Spyderco Bombshell, aka the Danger Pickle, and it's one of my favorite knives. Genuinely, I really like it. I'm super glad that I have one, and that'll be my full review on it. I'm sure you'll see it again in some other videos down the line somewhere, and probably a lot on Instagram, because I take a lot of pictures of this knife. But this will wrap up the review process of it, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully those of you who have gotten one are enjoying yours. Those of you who have one on the way, be excited. I was, and it lived up to it. Anyway, there it is.